x to the nth plus y to the nth equals z to the nth, where n is greater than 2, of course. Data calls a cowboy a creature, and Mickey D shows up, but we have yet to meet his pals, Taco B, Bergie K, and Carly J. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 2, Episode 12, The Royale, with Cheese, written by Tracy Torme as Keith Mills, directed by Cliff Bole. This was March 25th, 1989. Where were you? What's up, Cirroc?
Oh, 1989. Oh, okay. What's up? Keith Mills as Tracy Torme. So is this like a name change? Like a...
I don't know. I just saw that just now, and it says, written by Tracy Torme, which we know was part of the writer's room throughout. He's written other episodes, but for this one specifically, it says as Keith Mills. We'll have to look that up a bit. Yeah. Everybody, please make sure you are subscribed to this channel, whether you are listening in or watching on YouTube. Please make sure you go check us out on Patreon. That's patreon.com/The Seventh Rule. And if you want an awesome self-sealing stem bolt Seventh Rule shirt like the one I am wearing, but you can get it in any color and any size and style, go check it out on our online store. You can get that in the description box below. Just click on that spring link and it will take you to our store, and you can get your very own cool shirt, and it supports our fun show. Now on with the show. Yeah.
Cliff Bole, huh? Yeah, this was kind of a slow pace with the it just felt slow to me. I don't know. So it made me feel like definitely the director's touch had something to do with the pace of this. That was one of my first kind of critiques when I was watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it may be the writing as well. I mean, the writing that wasn't that elaborate. It was kind of, lackluster. But I don't know. It was a combination of the both of them. I understand what they were trying to do. So there were some takeaways in this episode. I like the starting, when it comes, they show you that fragment of a NASA spaceship. So I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be interesting. But it took such a turn that I don't know. What do you think?
Well, since you asked, as soon as I saw, this is another one of those many episodes that I either hadn't seen or don't remember. So when I saw the title, The Royale, my first thought was, this sounds like Casino Royale. This sounds like, a Vegas gambling kind of thing. And so, to be perfectly honest, I'm not really that big on those kinds of episodes. I'm not big on the gangster or the mafia or the old Vegas kind of shows. It's or just even any of these old timey shows. Some people love those. But I worried when I saw The Royale that that's going to be one of these kinds of shows. And I thought it was going to be a holodeck episode where Picard goes in the holodeck and he says, I want to visit the Royale with cheese or whatever, and he goes and does his Dixon Hill thing. That's what I thought. I thought it was going to be one of those, like Captain Picard as Dixon Hill, which is definitely not my style. I like the Vegas stuff that Deep Space Nine did, but I generally don't like those going back to like the 50s or the whatever style, even though this was just confusing. And then upon watching it, I was confused kind of by the whole thing. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
As soon as they mentioned Mickey D, I thought of you, and I was like, I can't be the only person that thinks like Mickey D's.
Yeah.
What? Did they not?
Yeah, Mickey D's, the McDonald's. I don't know. It was, they referred to it. It refers to itself as being corny in this episode. So there's
Yes.
moments when it actually talks about how bad the book is, and so you're basing an episode based on a bad book, which will eventually lead to a bad episode. I don't know. I don't see how the logic can work in the opposite direction. If you're going to use a bad book, let's say they had used a book that is well known and has good storylines, then we would have been caught into a world where we're like, oh, that's 1984. That's George Orwell. That's Alice in Wonderland. That's something that we're familiar with, and then we could have gone through an interesting story, that we're all familiar with, and they could have played off some of those themes. But they went with a bad book as the main theme, and that's, I just, it really felt dated. The chauvinism was over the top, in my opinion, in some of the themes,
That
especially
was
with the gambler behind you.
right. And that was explained as the bad book. So that's kind of their way of like winking to the audience and saying, so if it seems silly or corny or annoying or offensive, it's a bad book. And I wonder if that was added later to kind of explain that stuff, or if they were just planning that from the beginning as kind of like a meta thing, like, oh, they'll love it. They'll laugh along with us. They'll be like, what a bad book, and then maybe just the execution wasn't as good as they hoped. But yeah, I mean, the bad book thing, I kind of wasn't as bothered as you were about that, because at least they kind of explained it, and it was just they were trying to make it some kind of meta thing where they're like, it's supposed to be bad, so that makes it funny, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
we got no sense of who or what these aliens were that created this environment. What they created it out of? What are the actual building blocks of this environment that was created? Because they said it was neither alive nor mechanical. So I was really confused about, is this an organic matter? Like, what are we looking at? This is a hologram. Like there was no further explanation. So I wanted to know answers to questions that they didn't seem curious about. They were more curious about what is the story, and as opposed to, I guess, the story mostly being about this NASA endeavor. I would have liked more on that and less on this book.
yeah,
And and
yeah.
and it actually being more of a puzzle or a riddle or some kind of challenge to get out of. I just didn't feel. I just didn't feel the story sold me on any of the aspects of it. There's a great line that Riker uses in this, which I think sums up the episode itself. And he says, none of it makes any sense.
He should have winked to the camera. None of it makes any sense.
Yeah.
And then we go, oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of like the points you're making about that. They brought up some potentially interesting aspects to the story, but we never really got further into that. Almost like if they had focused more on any of those two or three or four other things a bit more, like if they focused on the aliens a bit more, or if they focused on what happened to that shuttle a bit more. They explained it well. I liked the explanation, but it was a good explanation, so I wanted to hear more about it. I was a little bit more curious about
Yeah.
that
So
story
they
or the
killed the
aliens.
guy's crew and then built this universe as an apology for him for guilt.
Yeah, yeah. They use this as like a Rosetta Stone or a Bible or something like that to build. They said that this poor book, this shitty book, this second rate book, whatever it was, they used that as, as a template, as a blueprint for the ideal society, and they've dropped him in it, which sounds like hell. It sounds like if you think about the worst book you ever read and you had to live out the rest of your existence in that, how could he say, I've lived here for 38 years? I'd be like, I lived here for 38 hours, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry, world. I gotta end this.
Yeah, you're trapped in it. There was a Twilight Zone episode, really good episode, about a guy who wakes up and he finds himself in a place like this, and it's a casino, it's a hotel, and he's constantly winning. So every time he rolls the dice, he wins. Uh, Everything is winning, and all the girls are all over him. Every woman's with him, so he has all these girls all over him. He's winning, and as the episode goes on, he gets tired of winning because everybody's so nice to him, and nothing's going wrong, and he's kind of a little annoyed by the fact that everybody's like, yes, sir," and he's always winning. So I guess by the fourth, fifth, sixth day, whatever it was, he decides to the host of this experience. He says, you know, uh, I don't want to be here anymore. Like if I'm in heaven now, send me to hell. I don't want to be here in heaven anymore. He died obviously. So, and the person says to him, "What makes you think you're in heaven?"
I vaguely remember this, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes contradictory to our own kind of intuition that if heaven would be a place where you have all these indulgences and everything you want and you're always winning, and but that's actually in this episode being proposed that it's not heavenly to have this kind of situation where everything works like that. And that is a good storyline. Twilight Zone took that story, being trapped in a kind of a place like this, always on the casino, girls all over him. Same set, essentially, but way better script. And pacing was way better. And the questions that were raised were, thought provoking about life and death and about heaven and hell and about, what you expect out of life. So those kinds of things. When I'm watching this episode, I'm trying to think, yes, I understand it would be really crappy to be stuck in this one book. But why did you bring that book with you on your
poor guy
book that you got to
maybe didn't know he didn't know that was a bad book before he took it. Hopefully, otherwise, yeah, that's the worst mistake he ever made. Like he's like, I'm gonna read this a second time. Let's see if it gets better on my flight.
Yeah. That reminds me of a question we used to ask each other when we were younger. We would say, if you were stuck on a desert island, what were the 3 CDs albums that you would take with you? Or what are the 3 books you would take with you? And we used to ask each other those questions and say, oh yeah, I would take this album, that, this, that. And this guy, this guy failed at that test. He obviously.
If you're going to go into outer space, what 3 books are you going to take with you? 3? I only need 1, and it's going to suck.
Hotel Royale.
It's funny. That reminds me, there was actually an episode, I think it was The Outer Limits. Wasn't The Outer Limits kind of like the knockoff of the Twilight Zone?
Yeah. Yeah. Not necessarily a knockoff. It was its own original.
But it was kind of similar in nature, right? Like a Black Mirror or a Twilight Zone. And it had a gambling episode too, which was kind of weird. I don't remember if it really had a great point, but there was some weird alien guy who comes down to some 18 or 19-year-old kid and was like, hey, if you hang on to everything you own and never get rid of anything, you will get rich beyond your wildest dreams, whatever. So he's like, okay, so he hangs on to the 4 or 5 things that a 19-year-old has. And then he, like 40 years later, he's like an old guy trying to get his last 5 cents of gas into his old shitty pickup truck. And like he sees that alien again and he wants to kill him. He's like, I did everything you said, whatever, and the alien disappears. It's like a little furry alien or something like that. And then he ends up going into, that's what it was. Then there was a lady at a gas station that sees the guy's mug or something. And she says, "Hey, is that a whatever mug?" And he says, "Yeah." She's like, "Can I buy it off you?" He says, "Sure." She's like, "How about 5?" And he says, "Okay." And she says, "Okay, I'll be right back with your $5,000." And then she buys this weird mug for $5,000. And then he takes it to go gambling, like in Vegas, and cut to he's got millions and millions of dollars, super rich. He's in a suit, and then he sees the alien sit next to him at the bar. He says, "Well, I feel like I at least owe you a drink." The alien disappears, and there's a lady right there that thinks he's talking to her. She goes, "Oh, well, I don't know what I did, but sounds great," or something like that. And then they live happily ever after, or whatever like that. It's a fun little one. Anyway.
Yeah. This episode could have been all of those things. I just felt like
could have been.
It was none of those.
We're reminiscing of good storytelling of yore.
Yeah. Wait till we reminisce. What was that? Ocean's 11, which is the Deep Space Nine themed, casino episode, which I like. I like the Ocean's 11. The timing, it had to do with all of the distractions and all of those things were interesting. It kept the pace going. This was like, they're stuck in there. It's moving slowly. Figure out what's going on. Communications are down. Even like certain basic things, like let's say the three of us were, I was on that away team, and let's say I'm Riker, and I've got my crew with me. I've got Data and Worf with me. We pop up on the right. It's a great crew. We pop up on the surface. This ammonia storm is floating above us, and we see this revolving door in the pitchness of black, in the voidness of black. I can't say that I would, as the senior guy in charge, all three of us be walking into that particular door without some reconnaissance. I would not allow all three of us to go in there. I would send.
Or when they were walking out, too. When they're walking out, I thought the same thing. I said, why don't one person test it out rather than the three of them look like the Three Stooges twice?
Yeah. So 3 people in a revolving door, which is weird because, in a revolving door, you kind of have to walk really slow because the guy in front of you is pushing. And so
it'd be funny if Worf doesn't know how to use them and he tries to cram in like with Riker. Riker's like, "Whoa, bro, you can't get your own pod." He's like, "I do not know how this works."
Or Data stops it and it doesn't keep going and they're all stuck in there. Just that would have been a nice little comedy moment. But seriously, 3 senior officers, who have very good decision-making skills, are all going to walk into a revolving door into an abyss of nothingness. They don't know where they're going. They don't know what's on the other side. And I just feel like that's a big risk. I would send a reconnaissance first and be like, "Okay, Data, go in there." And if we don't have any kind of communication back from Data, then I would say, okay, then we start to make decisions. And then that could have also been story building for this episode, right? Captain Data went inside the revolving door.
He hasn't come back. Yeah,
he hasn't come back. We've lost communications. Can you try to secure communications with Data? Okay, we're working on it. Just hang tight. And then Then Worf and Riker devise a plan where they tether each other. Say, "I'm going to be tethered to you as you go in," like some kind of problem solving type of thing.
I was thinking about that too. A bit earlier on when they were still up on the ship and they said, "Oh, this thing's got ammonia and this and that and all these things." And Geordi's like, "Nasty." And they say, "All right, well, I want to go down there and see what's going on." Why don't they send the android who doesn't need to worry about toxic chemicals? Like, why gamble? Why are they like, well, hopefully it'll be okay? Why don't they just send Data down? And Data can look around and be like a probe and see what's going on. He's not going to breathe in ammonia. He's not, because they said that, okay, there's a little air bubble kind of thing, right? Where it's fine. Okay, cool. But what if it leaks? What if as soon as somebody shows up, I mean, what are you guys doing? Like, you have basically a super being and you're not using him.
And equipment. So they have suits that they could wear. Oxygen type mask suits, right? Protective gear. Like, they showed up literally in their clothes on the surface, like walking around. And with like nothing, no kind of visor, nothing, no kind of breathing extra apparatus, or even extra weaponry. Let's say I'm going to show up. I'm going to bring the big guns with me, the rifles. I'm not going to just show up with the little pop. Yeah, something, right? Like some extra, or a medical kit or something extra, right? They literally show up like with their sandals on, flip flops and a beach towel, and I'm like, oh,
and their
guys,
PJs.
yeah, this is not the proper attire for exploratory kind of planetary surface mission.
So here's a question for you. For me, this episode immediately reminded me of an original series episode. And I feel like people that have seen this episode all know where I'm going with this. And that episode is called A Piece of the Action. I believe it's an original series episode, A Piece of the Action. And Kirk and Spock go to this planet that's like modeled after, like, I don't know, 1950s mafia Chicago or 60s mafia Chicago. And then they're like playing this card game called Fizbin. I think it's Fizbin. Yeah, Fizzgig is that little dog creature in The Dark Crystal. That's Fizzgig. I think the game was Fizzbin, and they've got all these weird rules. I don't know. I guess you haven't seen it because you're looking at me like I'm crazy right now, but it's just weird. Some people love the episode because they've got like machine guns and it's crazy and it's like gangster, but that kind of stuff's not really for me.
Yeah, Fizzbin. That's like a rapper name or something. Little Fizzbin. I just, when we get in the second half of the review, there's some saving graces that I'll kind of highlight on that I think were some of the origins for this episode. You said the original season. Is this the episode from the original season?
Yeah, original series. So you got Spock in this brown suit with these little Gatling guns or something, these machine guns that he and Bones have, and Kirk and Spock are.
He looks good in that suit, by the way.
Yeah. Gangsters. Kirk's in pinstripe. But anyway, you were saying?
Yeah, no, I think there's other aspects for the origin of this idea, which I'll probably get more into in the second half. But, some of those actors, I thought you were going to give me a little breakdown on some of those actors that we saw, because they felt like the guys that I've seen in almost every 80s.
I feel like definitely the assistant manager was very recognizable to me. I was like, where have I seen this guy? I feel like I've seen him in so many things in the 80s.
In everything.
Let's look him up.
Figure out.
We can hop to that break right now. I know we've been ragging on this episode, but like all I could do when I was watching this was hope. I was like, maybe Cirroc liked this episode. Maybe he'll save me, because I'm such a oh great, it's a gangster movie, or it's a 50s movie, holodeck episode, or I get all grumpy about it. But there were actually a lot of things I liked. I actually did laugh a lot. There were a lot of lines that cracked me up. And also, it's the origin of this episode is really interesting as well. So we'll cover all that stuff. Tracy Torme's origin story. We'll be right back on the seventh rule. X to the ninth plus y to the... I already messed that up, didn't I? X to the nth plus y to the nth equals z to the nth, where n is greater than z, of course.